Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our latest HubSpot training webinar. Thank you very much for joining us this morning on a very cold Wednesday morning here in London. Today we are going to look at how to build buyer personas and define buyer journey stages for your business. My name is Matt Croswick and I am Head of Marketing here at the B2B Marketing Lab. And I am joined by Jessica Gamble, who is an account director here at the B2B Marketing Lab, who's going to be helping me look at buyer personas today. Thank you for joining us, Jess.
It is a pleasure, Matt. As you know, personas are my favorite part of this whole thing. So, yeah, excited to talk about them.
Jess is our queen of buyer personas here at the B2B Marketing Lab. She's our go-to person for anything persona related. So, Jess, I guess first things first. For anyone on the webinar who perhaps hasn't built a buyer persona before or hasn't heard of the term buyer persona, what is a buyer persona?
That's a great question, Matt. So your buyer personas are fictional representations of your ideal customer. And why we say they're generalized is you're building, like, if you think about the 80-20 rule, you're building a general representation of this customer, because obviously people are unique and they have all their own different needs, wants, but you're trying to merge all of them together and create, I guess we try to create 3 to 5 main buyer personas for our clients. It doesn't mean that if someone isn't on that list of buyer personas, you're never going to talk to them. It just means that you are prioritizing the buyer personas. We often find that some of our clients are not sure which buyer personas to create, and then we try and get them to look at their best fit customers, the customers that are bringing in the most revenue. Those kind of things normally help to tell you where to start.
Okay, and if say you're a marketing manager, marketing director working in a company who didn't have buyer personas and didn't use buyer personas in their marketing efforts at the moment, what is the negative and what is the bad thing about that?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me is that if you're not 100% sure about the personas that you are targeting, you're kind of doing all your marketing efforts and creating content with no particular person in mind. I think without doing this kind of buyer persona research and even like, especially if you can talk to some of your actual customers to do this kind of research. Without doing that, you are kind of, I guess you're creating content around pain points that you think your customers or your potential customers have. It's not really based on anything. And I think the problem then is, you're not sure whether you're answering their questions or not. You are throwing it out there, fingers crossed, hoping it's right.
It's guesswork.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Julie, if we just move one slide further, this is an example buyer persona, a very, I guess, high-level example. This is the sort of example that we would look to create. To do things like print out and put on your wall in your office. It's good to have these sort of things in front of you if you're creating content or creating web pages, just to keep these people in mind so that you're creating content and things for them, as opposed to, like Jess said, guessing that it's going to be something that they're interested in. In terms of how we build our buyer personas, obviously there's a lot more to it than just background, goals, challenges, how we can help. There's a lot more information, and we usually go into a lot more depth in terms of the end product of a buyer persona. So I believe you're going to just go through a little bit more around that.
Yes, I will. So as you said, this is great to print up on the wall so that whenever someone in your team is doing anything marketing related, they've got your personas in mind. But of course, there is so much more detail that goes into creating a buyer personas. So we have a huge long list of questions that we ask to create our buyer personas. I've put some of our questions up here, so we'll go through them separately. But generally what we like to do is once we've identified the 3 personas, so let's say we know we're going after Marketing Mary, Sales Stuart, and I've got to think of a third one.
Quickly.
HR Henrietta. So much pressure. So let's say we're going after those 3 personas. Then we really do encourage our clients to get a team of people to come up with these answers. I think what's nice about that is, A, you spark discussion. and B, you're not relying on one person from your organization's idea of who your customers are. So what we generally try and do is we send out these questions to our clients, and let's say they've identified 5 people that they'd like to be involved in creating buyer personas. So we send out these questions to each individual person. They answer them, send it back to us. We'll collate it, and then in a workshop, we'll go through all of those answers. What's really nice there is then you can say, great, we had 3 people who said this persona is really struggling with their recruitment, but the other 2 of you said this is really not a problem at all, like let's discuss. What is so important, and I think quite often overlooked, is your sales team's involvement in this process. So often you think buyer personas and you think, great, the marketing team will do it. They do all the marketing. Your sales team are the people who are talking to your potential customers every single day. So they are the ones who know your buyer personas, probably, I hate to say it, a little bit better than your marketing team. So yeah, I think, and that's where 2 of my favorite questions in this list come from. What questions does this persona ask during your sales process? So these are the questions that your sales team will get. And if you can answer these questions either on your website or through content that you're creating before your potential customer gets to your sales team, you are speeding up the process and really making sure that they move down the funnel a little bit faster. What are their most common objections? So another personal favorite of mine. I think here, if your sales team is often hearing, I'm not going to work with you because you don't create content in German. So either you don't create content in German, and therefore you should probably make it quite clear that you don't, if that's a really common objection. Or you might find that that's their objection, but you actually do create content in German. So then you can add that to your website messaging and making sure that your offering is out there, and you're basically giving your personas all of the information that they need in order to make a decision before they talk to your sales team.
Sure. So it also means that once your sales team are on the phone to a prospect of yours, the prospect is a lot more educated before they get on the call, which makes that sales call 10 times more productive.
Exactly.
You can start a sales call already, halfway through the amount of questions they usually ask and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's really important where, where we are today in the world of sales.
Yeah.
You'll find that your persona's already done so much research and knows so much about it before they're even talking to your sales team. So the more information that you are putting out there about your product, your offering, the problems you solve, compared to your competitors, it may help you get a potential lead over one of your competitors.
Sure. And I think it's also a fantastic way of, if you're struggling to think of content ideas, simply getting a list of questions that your sales team get asked on a frequent basis is literally a blog plan ready to be written and ready to happen.
It's amazing. And I think we see it with when we create personas, like the sales team are getting these 5 questions all the time. They're not on the website and the most frequently asked questions. And I think we've created like a frequently asked questions ebook for a couple of our clients, and they perform really well. Mm-hmm. It means that the people downloading this ebook are like quite far down the funnel, because now they're like, great, these are the questions I want answers to. And we're helping our persona. We're giving them educational content and helping them to make the right decision at the end of the day.
Sure. And Jeff, in terms of linking personas to the buyer's journey, so whether it's the first sales call they're on, whether they're just a website visitor, or they're ready to buy, how does that work?
I knew you were going to throw me one question. Yeah. I mean, it's important to know what your persona is doing in each stage. So during the awareness stage, your persona knows that they have a problem. They might not know what that problem is yet, but they know that it's there, and they're probably doing some educational research to find out a bit more about it. During the consideration stage, they now definitely know what their problem is. They've given a name to their problem. And now they're considering all the different ways that they can try and solve this problem. In the decision stage, they've decided on the way that they're going to solve their problem, and now they just need to choose a vendor. So we've got we've got like one of the oldest HubSpot examples in the book over here, but I thought we could use a more relevant one. So for example, if you are a marketing manager at a company, in the awareness stage, you're like, oh, I know there's something wrong. We're not getting enough leads. What are we going to do? In the consideration stage, you're going, okay, I know I'm not getting enough leads. It's because we're not doing enough marketing activity. We need to up our marketing activity. What are we going to do? So in the consideration stage, you're going, cool, I need to up my marketing activity. I'd like to use a HubSpot agency. So then in the decision stage, you've decided, great, I can use a HubSpot agency, or I can use a different agency, or I could go in-house. But if I'm going to use a HubSpot agency, who are the different vendors that I can use? And at this point, they've got a list of like the top 5 HubSpot agencies that they're looking to work with. And that's when they're, talking to you about pricing and how they work and that kind of thing. Yeah. And then obviously there's different types of content that are more useful at different stages of the buyer's journey. What is really important, and I will say, is this is not like the rule for which content you should create at which stage. It's more of a guideline. It really does depend on your industry and your personas and your product offering. But this is a nice guide if you're not quite sure where to start. So if you think about it in the awareness stage, this is when your persona is doing research. They want educational content. So that's why there's things like reports, ebooks, thought leadership content, white papers. Then if you look at the consideration stage, they're trying to choose which approach they are going to use to solve their problem. So this is where they want like expert guides, like some podcasts, maybe some webinars like we're doing now, and some comparison white papers. And then at the decision stage, this is now they've decided on their strategy for how they're going to solve their problem, but now they just need to choose who or what they're going to use. So that's why there's vendor comparisons, product comparisons, case studies, really important, and things like a trial or a live demo to get a little taste of your offering.
And I think, as Jess said, the important thing here isn't, the fact that you any bit has to be an awareness rather than consideration or something like that. The focus is to make sure that you have content at each stage of the buyer's journey.
Exactly.
Because if you did a content audit and all of your content sat in the awareness stage, you might be doing a very good job of, you might have a very high amount of website traffic, but you find that actually leads just come to your website, read your content, and don't go any further.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, if all you have is decision stage content, so all you have is things like pricing books and stuff like that, you might find that you're struggling to actually get people on your website in the first place to find it. So,
and this is where I think the sales team, it can also create a problem for them. So if you've got a whole bunch of awareness stage content, like you've got a whole bunch of educational ebooks that people can download, those people who download those ebooks, if you're going to pass them straight onto your sales team, they're not ready to purchase yet. They'll probably find that it's quite aggressive that your sales team have now called them because they downloaded a top tips to whatever. So your sales team are going to get a bit frustrated. The people that your sales team are contacting are going to get a bit frustrated, and it's probably not that great for anyone. But if you are getting your sales team to contact people who've gone through this journey and are now they've requested a live demo, like they're clearly showing purchase intent. Now your sales team can call them, give them all the information they need, and help them to make that decision.
Fab. So we've gone through buyer personas, gone through the buyer's journey. Obviously, this is a HubSpot training webinar. So how does that, obviously these things are very theory-based and, working outside of HubSpot. So we recommend doing things like, if you've got, say, for example, a new HubSpot user, we would recommend always doing a buyer persona workshop or setting that up before you log into HubSpot or do anything in HubSpot. But if you want to use personas within HubSpot, what does the tool do and how can you use it?
Okay, well, perfect. What does this look like in HubSpot? So basically the whole point of putting your personas in HubSpot is so that you can segment all of the data that's in your contact database into your different personas, and then you can use that information to deliver different content or different messaging, different emails to your different personas. So the first thing that you want to do is set up your personas in HubSpot. So personas are set up as a custom contact property. So if you go into settings by clicking on the little cog in the top right, and then down to properties, if you search persona, whether your portal is brand new or not, HubSpot would have already created this contact property for you. So if you haven't added in your own personas, I think HubSpot has their own like default, like I think it is Marketing Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if you click on this, you can see the personas that we've added in here already. So if it's a HubSpot default one, you could delete them, but I'll just show you how to add a new one for now. So you click on Add a New Persona, and then this little thing pops out from the side. There are some really nice resources up here from HubSpot, so if you do want to check those out, that's where they are. You can add a photo of your persona, their name, a little description, and this is where you can keep all of your persona information. What's really nice is obviously you have that beautiful fancy document, but you can add it in here too so your whole company can have access to it. The one thing that I guess I didn't mention when we were talking about our persona document is that personas are, I guess, living, breathing things. So you don't want to create personas once, frame your persona document, and never touch it again. The more that you learn about your personas, the more that you change things, maybe your sales team provide more information, you want to keep updating them. So what's nice is if you're only keeping a little bit of information here in HubSpot, you can keep this quite up to date every time you make a change to your document. So there's a little tick box over here of automatically create smart lists for this persona. I would recommend ticking it. It basically just means that HubSpot will create a smart list for Marketing Mary or contacts, Marketing Mary, leads, things like that. So it's just quite nice for reporting. Okay, so now you've got your personas in HubSpot. So now the question is, how are you going to map your contacts to these different personas? So if you don't have a huge database and you know job titles, you could probably go through your contacts and manually add them to personas. Not the most fun, probably wouldn't recommend it. But
your sales team wouldn't like it.
No. What you really want to do though is you want to make sure that in your forms, every time someone fills in a form, they are helping you identify what persona they are. So obviously you can't really do it by job title because there are so many different job titles. Marketing Mary would have, I don't know, 25 different job titles that could apply to her. So what I generally suggest that we do is we create a qualifying question in a form. So normally it's a question like primary job function, because then you can ask, is your primary job function marketing, sales, HR? Always have an other option, because if you do not have an other option, someone is going to select the wrong thing because you haven't given them an out. So what you do is you create that question in the form, what is your primary job function? And if someone says sales, you can then set up a workflow, which I call like a maintenance workflow, to map anyone who has said my primary job function is sales to the sales persona. So I'm going to show you in HubSpot how to do that. So you're going to go to automation and to workflows. You are going to create a new workflow, and you can just call this persona mapping sales. Create workflow. Okay, so your enrollment criteria is going to be, we've done it off a contact property because it's a form question. So contact property, job function, let's use this one that we created for some training. So if primary job function is IT, for example, done. So if someone has said my primary job function is IT, that's the enrollment criteria. And then the action that you're going to add is you're going to set a contact property value. The contact property you want to set is persona, and you're going to select, obviously, if there was an IT persona, you'd select IT here. Then you'd save this, and you'd set this workflow live. So that means that anytime someone said, my primary job function is IT, they'd be mapped to your IT persona. What's really nice then is then you can see on your marketing dashboard, there is a HubSpot report on your top personas, who they are. And then you can do really cool things once you have your database segmented into personas. You can do smart content. You can send them different emails with pieces of content that you know are going to resonate more with marketing Mary than sales Stuart. I think I named him.
I think so. So in terms of going into a little bit more detail about, I guess, okay, so you've got a load of contacts in your database. You've successfully mapped them to personas based on, like you say, job title, or another one that we see quite regularly is people asking a question on the forum of like, what is somebody's biggest challenge?
Yes.
Because, the challenge of a founder is probably going to be different to the challenge of a marketing manager or a marketing executive, for example. So you've got a long list of contacts. They've all got a persona attached to them. I guess just in terms of some examples of what you can then do with that. So you mentioned smart content. What exactly does that mean?
So I think smart content is one of the most underused functionalities of HubSpot. You can use smart content on your web pages if your website's built in HubSpot, landing pages, thank you pages, things like that. Basically, it means that you can select a piece of your website page and use that little module to show different bits of content to different people. So if you have a nice big CTA on your website homepage promoting an ebook, you can make sure that if the sales persona comes to your site, it's promoting an ebook that's relevant to the sales persona, like top tips for closing. But if a marketing persona comes to your website, they don't want to see top tips for closing. So you can make sure that that CTA is showing them how to create effective marketing campaigns in 2019.
Sure.
It just means that you're showing people relevant content, which is always great. You're going to increase your conversion rate, and people then feel like you're creating content that is important to them.
Yeah, and that maps all the way back to what we were chatting about at the start in terms of how the reason for creating a buyer persona, so that you're writing content for specific people as opposed to writing content for who you think and who you're guessing your audience is. So I guess so outside of smart content, you've then got things like lead nurture workflows. So quite a few of our clients would build specific lead nurture workflows based on who their personas are.
Yeah, definitely. And I think going back to what you were saying about asking their biggest challenge, it's really easy to look at your buyer personas as different job titles. But sometimes if they're not 100% sure, we look at which of your personas have the same challenge, and that's how we create personas. So then what you can do in your lead nurture flows is you can make sure that you have a lead nurture for Marketing Mary, and then all of the content in that lead nurture is relevant to her. It's dealing with her problems, her challenges. It just means that every email she gets will have a marketing challenge. You can send her relevant marketing content, and maybe you know that at the end of the journey, she's more likely to actually want a free trial of your software rather than talk to sales. You can offer her that, whereas a different persona might actually just like to book a meeting straight away.
Fab. And so just before we move on to key takeaways, one question is around, I guess, so we have buyer personas and we have the buyer's journey. How are those two linked, and how do they influence each other? Throwing you a curveball here.
Oh wow, it's really early in the morning to have to think on my feet.
Do you want me to start for you?
Yeah, you start, Matt.
So I guess in terms of you've done a buyer. Say for example, you've done a buyer persona workshop and you've got 3 personas. For the sake of today, let's say that they are a founder, a director, and then like an executive. The things that get those people over the line in terms of moving from awareness to consideration to decision is going to be different based on who that person is. So one of those people in the company is going to be the final decision maker, whereas some other people in the company are going to be influencers. So in terms of when you're thinking about, right, what content am I going to create? Is it going to be a top level ebook compared to a decision level pricing guide? What you need to think about is who that piece of content is going to in the business. If it's going to the person who's making the final decision, then a pricing guide is a great piece of content to send to a decision maker who is in the decision stage. Compare that to somebody who might be like an executive who is an influencer but doesn't make the final decision on a new solution or a new product. creating something like 10 top tips for making my boss's job easier, or, making my boss look great or something like that, is a much better decision stage piece of content than that pricing guide that that person might not be interested in the cost.
And I guess they might not even know what the budget is necessarily. I think we do find that, obviously, like we have B2B clients, so sometimes that person doing the research is not the decision maker, but is doing the research on behalf of their boss because they've been tasked with it, or because they wanted to do something like impress their boss with, hey, I found this really cool thing. So I think a piece of content that we created for one of our clients, like that example, is we created something about how to get, what did we call it? Like how to get buy-in from the board on doing X. And that meant that this persona was an influencer. So they were like, okay, cool, this is exactly what I need. I need to know how to explain ROI, increasing efficiency, and reducing, staff churn with this amazing piece of software. And that's how they can present it to their decision maker.
Sure. And in an ideal world, you would, if there was like an end goal here, the end goal would be so that you have awareness, consideration, and decision stage content for all of your buyer personas.
Yes.
That would be a fantastic place to be.
Yeah. So I think if you're starting creating content from scratch, that is the place that you want to get to. You want to make sure that you have a piece of content for each stage, for each persona. I think we often get asked which stage you should start with if you're starting from scratch. I always say consideration stage, like a nice middle of the funnel piece of content. But if you're not starting from scratch and you've got a whole bunch of content, we'd recommend you do a content audit. So look at all of your existing content, map it against personas, map it against the different stages in the buyer journey. You can see what content you have to put into lead nurture workflows. You might have all of the content you need, or from doing a content audit, you might find, actually, I don't have any decision-making stage content, and that's what you need to focus.
Fab. You have some key takeaways for us.
I do. In terms of key takeaways, you always want to create your buyer personas through research. This can be surveys, interviews with your target audience, talking to your sales team. Whatever you do, make sure that you are not just making assumptions. Try and back them up. Always focus on your persona's pain points. So if you can answer their pain points through content, you are really going to help them. And this is really, it's where we start. If we've got personas, we're looking at what content to create. We look at their pain points. We create content around that. As I mentioned earlier, don't forget to involve your sales team. They really are talking to your persona on a daily basis. So they might not be the most forthcoming with this information, but if you dig a little deeper with them, they have amazing information. Use the 80-20 rule. I find that that's quite important to remember because not every persona is going to be identical. You want to create a generalized persona. So, if most of them are, I didn't really want to use gender. If most of them are between 20 and 30, but one person you've dealt with once has been 75, I would say your persona is 20 to 30 years old. Think about how your personas are emotionally driven to make decisions. So I think we touched on it a tiny bit, but if your persona is wanting to implement this new solution to impress their boss, get a promotion. Like everyone has emotional drivers for what they're trying to do, even in a professional setting. So that's quite important. And as we mentioned, create content to inform your persona at every stage of the buyer's journey.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Jess. So Jess, you run workshops on buyer personas and all things buyer journeys and that sort of thing. So if anybody has any questions around anything we've discussed today, or anything to do with the workshops that we run, please feel free to reply to one of our sort of promotion or reminder emails. I can always put you in touch with Jess and her team. In terms of HubSpot classroom training, we are also running classroom training on all things HubSpot every month in our offices in central London. You can see the dates in February, March and April here. My colleague Violetta is the one who sort of heads up our HubSpot training, and her email address is there if anyone has any questions or wants some more information around them. And last but not least, in 2 weeks' time, on the 6th of Feb, we'll be running our next webinar, which is looking at how to build your content strategy using HubSpot. So that's not just thinking about, you know, a wider content strategy, what's my blogging plan, but how HubSpot as a tool, how you can use the content strategy tool and the new SEO tools within the platform to aid you with that. So thank you very much for joining today. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks, Matt.
And we hope to see you all in a couple of weeks' time. Bye-bye.